There you go.
All right, so we're live here on YouTube, and I just want to call the meeting to order for our budget meeting, which is on 6 o'clock on Tuesday, April 14th. And I heard some noises there. Is everything okay, Morgan?
Yeah, you're good to go.
Perfect. So I'll call the meeting to order. And is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. And I just want to remind everybody that's watching this video at home, either live or later on in YouTube, that we're conducting this council meeting in this fashion because of the emergency situation due to COVID-19. And everybody is able to join us here from council, along with our CIO treasurer, our clerk, Jennifer Turk, and it seems like we have two other people that's called in. I'm not sure who they are. Jennifer, you want to say who those two are?
Yep. So you have Fire Chief Aaron Nordoff, and you have Public Works Manager Coulter Cahill.
Perfect. All right. So on our agenda, we have our 2020 draft budget, and it was last reviewed on March 10th. Kathy, you just emailed out a new draft budget to everybody just under an hour ago. And I'll hand it over to you, Kathy, to give council an update on what's new.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. The budget has been reviewed, and we've come up with a dollar levy increase from 2019 to 2021 of $216,662. It's a lot to take in all at once. I did have some technical difficulties over the weekend getting into my computer to get this out. So we'll switch over. Not everyone has access to us, I believe, right now. So one of the changes at the last meeting, Mayor Smith asked for looking at ways that we would be able to reduce the budget in each department. So I went through each office, each department, and the first one is the administration office. We are proposing to do some renovations in 2020 to provide additional office space and move the council chambers. Ways to fund that. Originally it was proposed to be all raised through taxation. We do have the 2019 unconditional funding grant that we received of $308,554. And part of that was earmarked for shared services development as well as hub development, $100,000 for the shared services development and $133 plus for the hub development. Proposing to use $100,000 of the unconditional grant for the shared services to assist in preparing offices for the new shared service of buildings, and as well taking out $100,000 out of the building reserve fund, in which we had $478,000, so we could use $100,000 out of that, which helps reduce the levy by $200,000. So we would be funding through taxation approximately $100,000, depending on when the final budget numbers are prepared for the office renovations. The next department was the fire department.
Kathy, what we'll do, Kathy, is, if there's any questions on each department, and then we'll go department by department. Is there any questions on this one so far? Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to the next one then.
So in the fire department, there was a resolution to proceed with the RFP for the fire truck. That has gone out. We have provided additional time due to the COVID. A lot of offices aren't operating on full speed, and a lot of them are away from their office. So they will be returning their proposals for the first part of May, and we'll have an answer for the May 4th council meeting. So you'll have a firm number on the proposals by then. So it's being proposed that 100% of the cost of the fire truck come from the reserves for the fire. If you take out the full amount, we're not sure, we're estimating about $300,000 for the fire truck. What it'll leave there is still some money to be brought forward for the replacement of the next fire truck. approximately $200,000.
Is there any questions on the fire department? Yep, Councilor Brody.
Yeah, Aaron, did you get a chance at all to see what you really wanted, or is that still put off?
Yes, we did. So an RFP was put together with all the specs in it, and that was sent out last Thursday. So yes.
Okay.
And Kathy or Aaron, what's the deadline on that RFP then?
I believe it was May 11th. Am I correct there, Kathy?
Yes, May 11th.
Okay. Okay, is there any other questions on the fire department? Okay, seeing none.
There's the next proposed change is in the building services for the Adelaide Metcalfe service. We have increased the contract purchase services slightly to reflect the fact that the hiring process has been delayed. Getting recruitment, setting up video with Zoom is taking a little bit longer than what we had originally anticipated. So we will have a little bit extra time. It would likely be in place towards the end of May as opposed to being for the first part of May.
Okay, is there any questions on that?
Question to, through you, Mayor Curtis, to Kathy. Do we know what the increased cost is?
We budgeted 25,000.
25?
Yeah, and that's not, that'll be net of whatever the cost is for building permits. That's just the cost to have the contractor here for covering our CBO position.
And a follow-up to that, to Kathy. Is this our cost alone, or is this the joint building services costs as well?
It will be our cost alone.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Hendricks, you had a question?
I was, you hadn't budgeted the amount for permits, and I'm just wondering about the total, because the total of the joint looks like a lot more than the amount we're paying now. And I realize I'm looking at 2 pages at the same time. And also, are the contracted inspectors, are they on a as needed basis, or are they just hired for being there a certain number of hours?
On an as needed basis only.
Okay, because the amount of building is slowing down, right? Because we can't start any new houses.
Correct.
Well, and you wouldn't have issued any new permits either, right? Because there's, unless they're a necessity, like an agricultural one, like on residential, you've not issued any new ones, correct?
Correct. As of April the 4th, we will not be issuing new residential permits. We will do agricultural buildings for the purpose of food supply chain.
Good. Okay.
We're still providing the inspection service though, so anything that is under construction and is allowed to continue, we do have to have someone here to do those inspections.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions on the building inspection department?
Through you, Mayor
Councilman
Curtis. I see for line 8325, legal and insurance, we have 10.5. I wondered if that was going to be enough.
Sorry, is that for the whole year?
I'm
That's
sorry?
in the joint services, it's to be in yellow, and that's what we're estimating for now, yes.
And my question is, do you feel that will be enough?
For the joint services, yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Again, there'll only be 1/3 of that will belong to Adelaide Metcalfe. Those costs will be shared with Southwest and North Middlesex.
Yes. And a follow-up to Kathy. We haven't addressed bylaw enforcement at all, where it used to be under building inspection and bylaw enforcement, or have I missed it?
Bylaw enforcement is a new category. We introduced it at the last meeting on March the 10th. It is.
I found it, $6,000. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
I was looking at the top under licenses and permits, dog tags, and I thought, okay, but yeah, that's for bylaw. Okay.
Is there any other questions? Yep, Councillor Brody.
On the bylaw enforcement, I would like to see really nothing happen there right now until we can have a more of a in-person with all of us meeting. I don't think it's the time to bring anybody in. I think that should be pushed to the side till a lot of this COVID stuff is over with. I don't think that's anything we should be flying into right now that we haven't been doing.
Yeah. At this point in time, we do not have a bylaw enforcement officer engaged. So what will happen is we'll need to have that approved through council and enter into a contract for the bylaw enforcement services. And then he will take appropriate action as directed.
Yeah, I don't think we should be hiring anybody through this. I like a lot more personal than this right now for something like that. We don't have it as we are right now, so I think we should push it off.
Just as a comment, Councillor Brody, I think we're going to be in this situation for some time. So I think if the decision from council, if the feeling is that we don't want to hire someone for the bylaw enforcement, then we also need to make the decision that those bylaws will not be enacted, or we won't be conforming to them, because
Right.
I think we'll be in this situation where we're talking through Zoom, or I heard a while ago that it was going to be till July, but I think we're going to be in this probably for a little longer than that.
Mm.
Yeah, so I like. Go ahead, Sue. I want your opinion.
No, I'm just wondering if there is an issue where it looks like a safety issue or a building or structural or whatever, would you not just have your fire chief or your building inspector weigh in on that? If it was that bothersome, if it's a tiny yard thing, I could see, letting it slide a little bit, but because the issue is too right now, the landfill's not open. So, we don't have another avenue for these people to dispose of things. Like, if it's vehicles, that's the whole other story, because I have no idea if George's Auto Wrecker's open or where these people would take yard issue problems too. So I think you could maybe look at it on a case-by-case basis, and if there's a safety issue, I think that's one thing. If it's just we don't like 6 cars on one property, we might have to hold our breath for a little bit, depending on what avenue is available for people to dispose of the extra.
Councillor Brody, do you want to make any additional comments?
No, I just vote the same. I think we should just push it back. And we can even bring that up, maybe this is a budget meeting, so we could bring that up on the 20th or the next meeting maybe to move along, but I think we better just push it off for now.
I think Kathy's done the right thing by putting an amount in the budget, because I think hopefully at a certain point we will be able to hire someone. It's just a matter of we need to make a decision how we're going to proceed with that. And we should probably look at having scheduling a meeting that's strictly a closed session to talk about personnel matters or whatever it would be. I know that we talked last meeting during the budget that we need to do a closed session, talk about property matters. So I think that would be added on to the list of things to talk about. And the discussion could be quick, that we don't want to proceed, but we need a decision.
Yeah, but I say leave it in the budget and we'll move ahead because we're not going to make it tonight. So, yeah.
Yep. I'm fine with leaving it in the budget.
Okay. So we have kind of jumped around a little bit. We were on the building inspection, then we kind of jumped to the joint building services. That's the service with North Middlesex and West Middlesex. And Kathy, do you have anything you want to add to that? It looks to be the same as before.
Yes, there is no change to that proposed budget.
Okay.
So there's no change to the animal control or the livestock or provincial offenses. As you'll see, the bylaw enforcement we discussed, so we can have that discussion on Monday at the council meeting. The next department is the roadways budget. So the one thing that's changed is for the transfers from reserves. We had in there the 133,000 from 2019 for the sidewalks, the emergency trailers for the 10,000 that wasn't spent in 2019, and also included there is taking a total of 300,000 from the capital purchases for funding the purchase of the tandem truck in 2020.
Yep, Councillor Brody.
Okay, so about the tandem truck, I took the notion to go look at Mac 1. And that truck is in immaculate condition. It has 267,000 kilometers on it only. It is only used in the wintertime. If we get rid of that truck and spend $400,000, I think we are not making the right decision. Our trucks are in superb shape. I think we need to take that money and put it somewhere else. That truck doesn't have a speck of rust on it. It is immaculate. That truck will last 10, 15 years for what we're doing with it easily.
Coulter, do you want to make some comments on Mac 1?
I do agree with Councillor Mike Brody there. That truck is in really good shape. I do think that we do need to think about replacing a truck. Otherwise, all three of those trucks will come up at once in a few years. But we had this conversation our last budget meeting about which truck to get rid of, and I was on board with possibly thinking about getting rid of another truck, or because we won't get it until next year anyways if we do get everything out now. But I am totally on board with keeping the Mac 1 unit for sure.
Go ahead, Councillor Brody.
Yeah, and just with another comment, like even the next Mac, Mac 2, I think it only has under 300,000 kilometers on it and is really good shape. Like I am in agreement, we need to put some money for some trucks, but I don't think we need to do this for quite a few years. Like honestly, we are in great shape when it comes to trucks. For how many kilometers we put on these things, those trucks are made to put 1 million miles on them, and they don't even have 300,000 kilometers. And even though it's been in snow and salt and ice, like these things have been so well maintained. Like there's no rust on them. The trucks are I was very happy to see how great shape these trucks are in.
I agree, Mike, with how good a shape they are in. When do you think, or when whoever thinks we should gear up for ordering another truck or replacing?
Just comments. So the one thing with the Mac 1, like, so we use 3 trucks all the time. That truck only does get used in the winter. It doesn't get used all the rest of the season. So if we keep doing that with that truck, I mean, I cannot see how it will give us any major problems. I think we're better off to look at putting some money to a new shop.
Councillor Clark, you had a question?
Yeah, Coulter, what's on the Mac 1? That doesn't seem like a lot of kilometers on it. Are you having any maintenance issues or anything at this point? What's it cost you annually to maintain it, like $5,000-$10,000?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think it was somewhere in the ballpark of 13 to 20 for the year. They all are around there. Some are a little higher, but I do agree with that truck. It is a really good truck, and we do mostly drive it in the winter. We can, stick to that process of trying to just drive it in the winter. But at the same time, if we're thinking this way, then we should definitely consider in the next year or two replacing one of the other two tandems. But I do agree with keeping Mac 1.
Okay, then I think we just have to make sure we keep enough in reserve each year to meet the need when it arises, so you're not short. But I would support keeping it as well and not replacing it at this time. I mean, living in the country, that barely sounds like it's broken. That was at 250,000 kilometers. That's not a whole lot of kilometers. So.
In our
And just looking at the budget, it looks like the repairs and maintenance for Mac 1, 2, and 3, we budget $23,000 to each of them. Not sure where there's Mac 4. Mac 4 is newer, so we've only been doing 5,000, and then this year we're budgeting 10,000. So we are, I think, looking at it, I think we've always kind of budgeted the same amount for 1, 2, and 3, knowing that one of them will probably cost a little more than others. But looking at it from last year, Mac 2 Coulter seems to be the one that cost a lot more compared to the other ones, which was $27,000.
Yeah, I think I believe you're right. And I believe the year before it was Mac 3 that cost us the most. So the right thing to do, I think, is to look at those 2 trucks when we are replacing. I know Mac 1 was always in the works because it is the oldest, but I do agree it is in the really good shape compared to the other 2 trucks because we do take good care of it and drive it. We don't drive it as much now anymore, just mostly in the wintertime.
Okay. Councilor Brody?
Yeah, I'd just like to weigh in on one more thing. So that is I don't know if many council members will understand this, but that is a pre-DEF truck. So DEF is the new regulations for exhaust. Yeah. And that truck does not have that, which is legal. It's fine. That's perfect. And those are the trucks that people want because it's the DEF systems that are giving the problems. So that truck does not have it on it. I think we'd be making a big mistake if we got rid of that truck.
Okay, Kathy, just going back to the actual budget itself, how much were we going to take out of reserves for the replacement of the Mac, or Coulter, whoever can answer that?
It was 300,000, but it wasn't necessarily to replace Mac 1. It was just to replace a truck. It never was specifically for Mac 1. We've had this discussion previously, and at the time when the new truck is getting delivered, that's when the decision was going to be made on which truck to dispose of.
But my question, is it the 100% funded through the reserve, or was there a certain amount on the levy?
There would still be basically we are budgeting 400,000 as the expense, with 300,000 coming out of the reserve for funding it, not knowing what the cost is going to be to replace a truck at this point in time.
Okay. Well, I think the discussion we have to have, it sounds like Coulter, you're saying we may not need to replace, are you saying we don't need to replace Mac 1 right now, or replace any trucks in the 2020 year? And
I'm
technically
saying
2021 year as well, because of the delay in purchasing.
I'm saying I do agree with keeping Mac 1. I know if we do budget for a truck this year, we wouldn't get it until 2021. But that is up to council's discretion. If maybe if they don't want to do it this year, that's fine. But we will not get a new truck until 2022 if we do purchase it next year. So I'm up in the air. I'm good for whatever, but I would say keep Mac 1. Keeping Mac 1 is a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Brody?
So I would suggest that we put this to the side for this year and just reevaluate next year on trucks. Leave that 300,000 in the reserve and put 100,000 back into this year's budget.
Okay, any other suggestions?
Curtis?
Clark?
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe what could happen is exactly what Mike said about pushing it forward and keeping Mac 1. I would like to hear from Coulter in like October to see if anything has changed over the summer months, to see if there's any urgency to actioning something before the end of the year, and then reevaluating at that time, so that if we have to have something for next year, we're not totally boxed out. So maybe if you could just keep that on your radar for the end of October or something, so that we still have a window of opportunity.
Yes, for sure. That's a really good idea.
So it sounds like the recommendation that council's wanting, if I could also hear from Councilor McKinnon and Deputy Mayor Hendricks, is that we'd like to delay the purchase of a new truck until 2021, that we don't take the $300,000 out of reserve, and the additional $100,000 that was coming from the levy, just remove that entirely from the budget. Is that what you're suggesting, Mike?
Yep. And delay so we won't get a new truck for 2021. We'd relook at it next year's budget time and maybe get, if we think we need, we'll look at it for 2022. But at this time, we're in excellent shape with trucks. They are in great shape. I think we can spend better money elsewhere.
Okay. Can we hear from Deputy Hendricks?
Yeah, I agree with Sue's idea of maybe getting feedback from the roads department in the fall, so that if something does go wrong and we do need to look at a truck, because even though they haven't got a lot of mileage, they're not really young babies anymore. And so, maybe just get some feedback in the fall, but take it out of this year's budget. We can put it in early next year if we need to.
Okay, Councilor McKinnon?
I'm in agreement with what Councillor Brody and Councillor Clark have proposed.
Okay. Okay, did you get that, Kathy?
So you want the truck to come out of the expense and nothing to go into the reserve for next year? Or the 100,000 to stay in and go in reserves in 2020 for the future replacement?
Right now it was to remove it entirely, but
Entirely.
What were you saying? Is that what you're gonna say?
I'd say remove it entirely. We've got enough in the reserve for trucks. I don't think we don't need to add any more at this point.
I think we could look at that at the end of the budget process to see if we do need, if we do have the opportunity to add to the reserves, then we can do that then. But right now, I'd say what's suggested would be to remove it entirely then.
Okay, so the next section that's changed is the hard top maintenance, which is account 63108323. There is a supplementary sheet provided, and what Coulter and I have done is we've taken the bonded wearing course application from Catesville out of the maintenance portion and put it into capital, so it'll show up on the capital side of the budget, which is really where it should be, because it is a new application. And it's also recommended that we're going to take out the Melwood Drive patching until we get all the approvals in place for the planning matters that are pending for the property that's being affected. And then look at it for 2021 for what needs to be done on Melwood Drive.
Deputy Hendricks, with your hand up.
Yeah, I was going down Cuddy Drive. It's been a while now, I guess a month. I know that the east half was resurfaced last year, and the west half is scheduled to be resurfaced this year. I'm wondering if it even needs it. When you drive from our township into the next one, you're already driving into something much poorer. Not that we have to go by that standard, but I'm wondering, I would sooner see that money go into Center Road sidewalks and put off the resurfacing Cuddy for a year. I'm not sure about the other side of the Kerwood Road, but I know the east side of the Kerwood Road is in really good shape yet.
Okay, Coulter, do you have any comments on that?
To research the other half of Cuddy, I believe is a really good idea just to stay on top of it. It is showing some wear, it's cracking, and moisture is coming through. I know it doesn't look like it's in really bad shape, but if you do stay on top of it, then you know, a really rough surface for 15 years or so. So it's one of those things that you kind of got to get on top of before it does look bad. So I obviously agree with keeping it in the budget, but that's totally up to you guys.
Okay, Councilor Brody.
I guess I have the same kind of question for the stretch on Murphy Drive, because that was just all done like when it first was built. It seems like in really good shape to me too, for how much that is used. I know you get to the far end of it and there's pretty limited traffic, especially now that LaSalle line got ripped up on the other side in Lambton and it's all gravel. I think the traffic count went way down, I would think, but maybe that's just to keep it where it is and then you're done with it. I'm not sure. I guess I'm just asking that question, Coulter.
It's maintaining that the turn chip servicing method. You do have to stay on top of it every 5 to 7, like I said. Otherwise, it goes fast, and Murphy is starting to chip away and crack, and the edges are getting bad. Again, you don't have to do any of this, but it is going to all come to a halt another year, and we'll have to do a lot more. So I'm just instead of get next year or the year after, you 2 roads a year, you stay on top of it, you're resurfacing. And then our roads are nice roads, but again, that's your decision.
Go ahead, Councilor Brody.
Yeah, oh, no, that sounds good. I got no problem with that. Like it's not huge total restructuring job. So no, I was just questioning that because I know what Murphy is like, and yeah, no, okay. I just wanted your opinion.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Councilor Clark.
Yeah, I'm in favor of sticking with the road superintendent's recommendation because you don't want these to deteriorate to the point where we have a liability issue, or then it costs more to maintain them because they weren't maintained properly. And if we do a little bit every year, then we're not getting hammered all at once. So I support the recommendation to keep it in the budget, both Cuddy and Murphy.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Councilor McKinnon? You're on mute.
Sorry, I agree with Councillor Clark that for the 337,500, leave it in and keep it as we'd like to see all roads in our township kept up to par.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think we need to keep down the path that we are right now, because if we do deviate from it, it'll just mean that it'll cost taxpayers more down the line. And I also think, Coulter, and we've talked about this, is that sometime later on in this year, we need to have a report from you for council's approval to determine what roads we're going to have paved going down in the future. So then we can have it'd be a lot easier to budget every year instead of kind of determining, should this road be in the budget this year, yes or no? And it's more of a streamlined approach of this is how much money is going into the budget for hard surfacing or resurfacing or whatever it is. And our public works manager knows exactly what project is being done in what year. So I agree that we should be leaving this. Councilor Brody?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
Okay, is there any other questions on the roads for the hard top road maintenance?
One question.
Wisdom.
Councilor Clark?
Just a general taxation question with respect to roads. If a property is zoned industrial or commercial, is in their tax assessment, is there already something built in for wear and tear on the roads or not?
No, there's nothing specific. Everyone pays through the tax levy based on their assessment. So if they were assessed commercial or industrial, they would pay at a higher rate based on the ratio set by county council.
Right. So I guess my question is, in that higher rate, is there not a built-in mechanism? Because if they're industrial commercial, presumably there's more traffic. So is it implied that it is in that higher rate and reflecting that? I guess that's just what I'm trying to understand.
Not necessarily to reflect just that, but just that they have an improved service. So they potentially could have more traffic or cause more expense to the municipality.
Okay, does that answer your question, Sue?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd like to see the number difference to see what, I'm just trying to be fair. If being industrial and commercial is not a significant difference to agricultural or rural residential or whatever, I'd like to see what those rates are to see if we're being fair. That's all I want to do.
Okay, so for example, for the tax ratio differences, they're set through the county. So our residential rate is the base rate. So industrial land that has an industrial assessment pays 1.7451 times the residential tax rate. So they pay at 1.751 times. Commercial is 1.1449 times the residential rate. So it is by a weighted assessment. So they do pay proportionately more towards all of the expenses of the municipality, not just what they use, but they pay for everything. Conversely, farmland only pays 1/4 of the residential rate at this time.
And now those rates were just approved, I think it was 2 meetings ago at County Council.
Yeah.
And the idea was to relook at those tax rates at the new 4-year phase-in for impact, which has been delayed, I believe, until another year. So County Council will still look at approving those again next year, but I think this current County Council is not looking at changing the actual rates until we see the new 4-year phase-in.
Thank you.
Right, Councilor Brody.
Just a comment about that. So you cannot, I don't think, put hardship on a business that is on one of our roads when we have a whole bunch of businesses that will be on county roads. So how are you going to treat, just because a business and it's bigger is on one of our roads, and try to charge them for road maintenance when all the businesses that we have that line up on the county roads that are in our township, how are you going to treat one different than the other? I think the tax rate is the way it's supposed to be. That's a higher amount. That's why they pay a higher amount. And we, as a council, have to make sure that we are helping these businesses, not hindering them.
So just to that, Councilor Brody, if there is a business along any of the county roads, and if there's any improvements that need to be done, that would be done through a site plan agreement process. So for example, along Highway 81 with the hotel development, they have to put in stoplights, and they also had to put in the turning lane, and that's at the cost of that business. I believe also the Eve Co., which is the cannabis greenhouse development, which is over on Napperton. I believe they have to put in a turning lane as well, and that's at their cost. So there are, if there is any improvements on county roads, that's at their cost. So just so you know that there are still costs at the county level as well if there is a business on a county road. Yeah, Councilor Brody.
So to comment to that, yeah, adding a lane, that's different than just maintaining a roadway. Or adding stoplights, that's different than trying to charge somebody for extra road maintenance. I agree with, if lanes have to be added or lights have to be added, that's different than just maintaining a single piece of road.
Okay, Councilor Clark.
Yeah, I was just going to basically say the same thing. If you're actually changing the physical layout of the road to accommodate their traffic, I get that. That should be an expense to theirs. I'm just thinking, what is the commercial or the industrial ratepayer getting for a higher levy? And I'm just trying to understand that, because you have to be fair. And you know, if they're already paying more, is there an assumption that that covers them driving down the road the same as me driving down my road on a rural residential or agricultural? So that's just what I'm trying to understand. And I want to be fair.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's just a general education question for myself, trying to understand what the rates are and how they come up with them and what's covered off in them. So that's got nothing really to do with the budget. It was more of a general question, and thank you.
Yeah, I can forward you on a report from County Council that outlines the efforts.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions on the hard top road maintenance? If there's none, I think the next one, Kathy, is the capital road construction.
Yes, I just want to touch that we did reduce the dust control to reflect the actual numbers received through the tender. So that has been decreased a little bit. The next item is at the 6310-8420, which is the transfers to reserves. The 90,000 is the 2020 AMO gas tax allocation, and it's being recommended to be put over into reserve for 2020 as opposed to being applied to a project. And that's just, we've done that in the past to add to money to do a larger project. If we are going to go ahead with Cuddy Drive, it can be applied to Cuddy Drive and kept in the 2020 operating budget. Or if you'd like to put it off for a larger project such as School Road or Scotchmere, we can compound that into the next year for one of those larger projects.
You're looking for direction then?
We can wait and see at the end of the, once we do the discussion on the reserves at the end of the budget process, and whether you want to maintain it in a reserve for future, or if you would prefer to have it allocated to a project in 2020.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
So next is the road construction project, which is GL account 6310850. You can see an awful lot has been taken out of the budget for 2020. It's being proposed to proceed with the County Lane reconstruction, as well as to complete the Catesville Drive bonded wearing course, which is from Kellam Road to Kerwin Road. School roads taken out. The county, through Coulter, he advised that the county thought that this addition of section may be more than what the current county contractor would be able to handle this year, based on what's going on and other contracts they have to complete and how long it's going to take them to be completed based on the restrictions that are in place right now. Now we also have some other work that we would have to get ready for the hard surfacing to take place, and whether that can be completed in time for the contractor through the county.
Okay, Councilor Brody.
So I have a question about that School Road one, Coulter. That road is in pretty tough shape. Is there any way of just getting it ripped up, prepped, ready this year, like with our own equipment, or how does that work for a road like that? It's not a long stretch, but it needs work.
Yeah, it is rough, Mike. There is a way. We can do all the prep work this year, put the gravel base on, and leave it over the winter and service it next year. The only reason it's out of the budget right now is because the county is going to hopefully get Kent and Feasy Street on their asphalting, and leaning on them to do school as well. They can't even commit to Kent contract 2 months or a month exact dates, but we can still do it. We would have to.
Walter, you're cutting in and out.
Oh, sorry. Is that better there?
I think so, yes.
Hello?
I think it sounds better.
Okay. We could still do it this year. It's just we would have to tender out the asphalt ourselves, and we would pay a little bit more instead of going with the county. I don't know how much you heard from what I was saying before, but they can't totally say yes to Kent and Feasy yet. They're trying to get it done for us, but their contract was already out weeks ago. So we're hoping to get that on their contract, but if we can do get everything done for school prepped and leave it a gravel surface for the winter.
Any thoughts on that, Councilor Brody?
Yeah, like what would that cost, and how many projects do we have to keep our own staff busy? Like, should we be looking at doing something like this to this road? Is that something that's feasible with your timeline, Coulter, or do you have enough on your plate for all the guys this summer, or what are things looking like, I guess?
Our summer's not horrible. This would pretty much just top it off quite nicely. for a steady amount of work. Like I said, we can do it. It'd be great for us. It would keep us going. We can leave a gravel road over the winter time. And we also felt that, like I said, we have to tender that ourselves. We would pay a little bit more, but it's definitely doable for sure.
Okay, Councillor Clark.
So I guess maybe my ask would be park it for now, but maybe at the next council meeting, bring forth a number, what you might think it might cost Coulter to prep that road, and to see if that would be feasible. And don't take insult to what I'm about to say, but when you do these roads, has there been an engineer report, or when you go down that path, or is it just personal experience of you and your team that does the work?
Most of our rebuilt roads have been engineered, like all the new ones and whatnot. That road was totally rebuilt years ago. It has a really nice gravel base. But to say it has been engineered as of late for the next process, no, it's just in dire need of a new hard surface. It's time to roll over. It's been some years yet, and it just needs to get pulverized and a couple of ditching spots, and then a new hard surface. And it's got the basis there. It's already been done. So.
Okay, good. Thank you.
No problem.
So Coulter, is this a school road at the end of its lifespan then, as it currently is?
Yeah, school road, the hard surface is at the end of its lifespan.
Okay, so this would be the perfect opportunity to move into the asphalt plan that we talked about at the last budget meeting.
Exactly.
Okay, Councillor Brody and then Councillor McKinnon.
I'm just wondering if we should just leave, say, 150,000, just cut it back because we don't think we can get it hard surfaced. And then for now, like just for today, and then by the final budget meeting, maybe Coulter will have an idea if we can even, one, do it, maybe two, that, you know what, we with contractors not working as much as they are right now, maybe we're going to have to wait one more year. I'm just wondering if we just back it off a little bit for now and see, maybe we'll have more of a better answer at the final council budget meeting.
Okay, Councillor McKinnon.
Through you, Mayor Curtis, to Coulter. Years ago in one of the townships that I was working with, we used a dock gravel. It's expensive, but the road superintendent of the day said that his costs were down a third of what it would be on a normal gravel road. It wears well and it doesn't seem to go to potholes. And even if it does go to potholes, it's still very smooth. Have we ever considered that option?
To leave it over the winter like that, Betty Ann?
No, to gravel it with this. It's Lambton Kent uses it, or Lambton County uses it all the time, and so does Kent to some degree. And it's different gravel than what we normally see on our gravel road. There's not the sand content in it. It's small stone chips that when you add water to it, it almost sets up like a cement road. It's really a good road.
Coulter, I think an example of that is actually Sexton Road, the section that Lambton County maintains. I think that's the material that Betty Ann's speaking about.
Okay, the gravel portion there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We have there. That's a hard surface road that we're trying to get back to there. So it just needs a little gravel lift after we pulverize that road. But if you were to leave it as a gravel road, sure, that is definitely an option to look into.
And as far as a project for you, you know, I'm going to suggest Scotchmere Drive that's been suggested to the ratepayers out here every election. And it was mentioned that there's only 61 cars on that road per day, but with walkers being paved, I think people are choosing the paved road rather than going down Scotchmere. And I'm just hoping we can look at a solution for Scotchmere that is palatable for our ratepayers who have been waiting a long, long time for that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKinnon. Councillor Brody, you had your hand
Yeah,
up.
I want to see a road count thing on a separate meeting. I think we need to look at all of our roads. I don't think that we better get into a long conversation about that one tonight, probably.
Okay, Councillor or Deputy Mayor Hendricks.
Yeah, I think it's fine if we leave School Road gravel over the winter, but I wouldn't want to see it permanently gravel. It's a pretty main road. It's used by a lot of people. So I imagine the traffic counts on it, even though it's in really rough shape, the traffic counts are probably pretty high on it.
It looks like we lost Coulter on the list. Morgan, is that right?
Yeah, he's falling off there. Let's see if I can get a hold of him.
Okay. Councillor Brody?
Yeah, I would move. Let's leave this one right now, and maybe we'll get a bit of a report for the final budget. But I think that road, I agree with Betty Ann or Mary Ann. That's a well-traveled road. The school's on there. We're going to have more access to the dump, right? Because that's going to be a feeder to the dump. We got one close. I don't think we can cheap out on that road. It's going to have to be done.
Yeah, and I think to my comments before, I think we should be waiting. We shouldn't be going ahead and doing tar and chipping again. I think we should slowly go into the asphalt. Yeah. And as to my comment before, I really think Coulter, we need to have him create that report as to what roads he believes should be hard surfaced now and into the future, so we know what roads should be paved and how much we should be budgeting every year. Because I think this discussion on resurfacing and capital projects, I think it would be very streamlined once council approves which roads they actually want to pave. And it's a very simple formula from there as to how much money we need to put into reserves and use every year. So I think that's really our way of going, because even on this list, looking at a Denning Road, it's hard surfaced right now. Should it be hard surfaced? And I think that's discussion about. Just because a road is hard surfaced right now doesn't mean it has to be in the future. Because a road right now was on a list for a lot of years, should it still be paved or should it not be? We need to have that bigger picture discussion, and I think that needs to happen later on this year, so then we can budget properly going down in the future, and then we won't have to have these discussions. You know, should Scotchmere be paved or shouldn't it be paved? And it's in a plan, and we're already budgeting for it. Yeah, Councillor Clark.
Yeah, I agree. It's just like with the sidewalk report, it showed, you know, what the cost was going to be. And then as a council, we sort of ranked where we thought would be in order. And I think you have to look at it like a strategic plan where you're saying, okay, these are the roads in the municipality. What's the priority, like from a safety standpoint? And then after that, what's your maintenance program? And then also, what's your improvement to bring it up to a different level? So I think that we almost need a structured plan, like you're suggesting, I think, Curtis, as to what's going to get done over the next 5 to 10 years, and then prioritize it. And then it's an easy discussion every year because it's on a maintenance program almost. So that's what I'd like to see.
And I think with the discussion of School Road, I think everyone on council will agree that that portion of School Road needs to be paved. So it's more of a matter of, do we do nothing this year, or do we just gravel it and have it so when we just start that base for 2021? And I think, Coulter, we'll just need an answer from you at the next meeting as to how much that'll be just for the construction portion.
Yep.
I can definitely come up with something for the next meeting on just the construction part.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Okay, is there anything else we want to discuss on this page, which is the Capital Road construction? Yep, Councillor Brody.
Yeah, just this 80,000 on the replaced bridge with Bailey Bridge. That number's that's not right. I'm looking at the old sheet, so that was going to be down to 40,000, and that was just doing the welding repairs underneath that we're advised to do. Correct?
Correct. The engineer, welding contractor, and the public works manager were on site and did an inspection, and they do not believe it's as extensive as first thought. We'll be looking at the engineers preparing information on restricting the load limit and other remedial actions that can be taken to help extend the life of the bridge.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Brody.
Yeah, so I think 40,000 in repairs to keep that bridge where we may not have to replace it for a long, long time is a great idea. Just lower the load limit signs, which should be anyways. We're not using that. Like our trucks, other than a pickup, are not going across that anyways. And if we keep with that, lower the load limit, spend a little bit of money, that thing could last for a long, long time, because we don't want to get into a big debate on replacing that bridge. That'll be a lot of money.
Okay, I think everyone agrees that the $40,000 makes sense.
Yeah.
The next one is the sidewalk construction, and Kathy, you've indicated the Napperton northeast, Pike northeast, and Napperton northwest. And hopefully everybody remembers the diagram from our last meeting. So everyone knows what we're talking about. Kathy, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, so 133,000 will come out of reserves from the 2019 amount of 200,000 that we did not spend. So that helps offset part of the 360,000 in 2020 construction. The numbers were updated and the report from Driven was circulated around. Of particular interest is the concrete versus asphalt difference. It can be found on page 22 under 4.1 of the Driven Engineering report circulated today. And it does, moving to asphalt does decrease the cost of the installation somewhat. However, the cost of the maintenance going forward does increase over the years. Asphalt is more susceptible to cracking on the edges and it doesn't last as long as a concrete sidewalk.
Okay, Councillor Brody.
Yeah, just a comment on that. I do not like the idea of cheapening out and doing asphalt. I think if we're going to do this project, we're going to do it once. We want to do it right. It won't be as nice to walk on, kids, strollers, bikes, anything. If we're going to do this, I think we're going to do it. We got to do it right. And then just one other question. I thought that we had agreed on 4 sections around that Napperton and Pike area to finish it all off. Did we not? So then we didn't have to go back and just do that whole part and be done and leave Center West till the next year?
Center West is taken off.
Yeah, Center West was gone, but I thought we were gonna finish that whole Pike Napperton section in one shot.
So on this most recent budget, it looks like every portion in that section is there except for Pike going north or going south and on the east side. Correct?
I'm jumping back and forth from study to budget here.
Yeah, because if you recall, I think we wanted Center West or North Southeast, Center East on the project, but there was also the issue that the county will be working on 81 highway. So just in case they're delayed, we wanted to bump it to the top of the list for 2021. Is that not correct?
Yeah, that was correct. Center wasn't going to be in this year's equation at all. But
That's right.
so I've got the map up in front of me. So can you read me which ones are on the budget then? Kathy, do you have that right in front of you?
Yes, Naberton Northeast,
Yep.
Pike North,
Northeast.
East,
Yep.
and Naberton North.
Northwest, right?
Yes,
And then did we not talk about finishing Pike on the other side, southeast or southwest? And just being done with that whole section this year? And there was one other thing I read in that report. If we left the last two houses out on Naperton Northwest, there was we're cutting two houses short, but we were going to save like 12,000 because there was a ditch and something else that was an issue. Is that correct?
on the northwest.
I think it was Naperton Northwest. I thought I read. It's back in page like 20 somewhere where it was a comment.
Jennifer, do you have any of your notes from your previous meeting, and did you make any notes from that?
So I'm looking at the minutes of March 10th that were approved at the April 6th meeting. And we have Naperton Drive Northeast, Pike Road Northeast, and Naperton Drive Northwest.
Okay, so I found it. It's not. It's on Naperton Southwest, so that doesn't. Yeah. Okay, that's clear now. So back up, Jen. What was the ones we approved to do then?
Yep. So Naperton Drive Northeast, Naperton Drive Northwest, and Pike Road Northeast.
Okay, so we didn't do the other side. Now, was that because the county's going to look at that road, so we decided not to, or?
Yes, I
That was
believe that the
my
county taking it over and proposing some improvements to it. We were going to wait and see what the county's plan was for Pike going
And
south.
less traffic on that. There's a better walking area there than there is on the other. Okay, I just wanted to get that clear again then.
Yeah. That's how I remember it.
Okay, so I'm in agreement with getting Naperton Northwest, Naperton Northeast, and Pike Northeast done in this year's budget.
Yeah, and then I would like to see Center Road be at the top. Like if we have this plan, just like we're talking about for roads, we should have a plan for the sidewalks. So then next year, Center Road East or whichever would be the #1 priority. And then the county presumably will have done their work there this year. And then whatever we decide falls in after that.
Yeah.
Now, is that something?
Go ahead, Mike.
Sorry. So is that something we'd have to agree upon now to have it tendered to go ahead like right away in 21? Or do we need to, I guess that's going to get paid in 2021. So as long as I'm just saying that instead of waiting to tender this stuff after the budget, and then you run into trouble if you can get contractors, why can we not have that lined up at the end of this year? So that contractor already knows that in 2021, they're going to do that section. We know that this money's going to get spent, and that would be improved in the 2021 budget instead of waiting until the budget's over to then go out and tender these companies. And then maybe they're too busy already. And if things are going to get backed up this year from 19, because a lot of those companies can't work, we'd be at a risk of maybe this project can't even get done in 19, and we're going to be pushed back already. We don't know that.
Just to be sure, we're in 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
Sorry, you had me confused for a second. Kathy, just to that question, would we be able to decide what we want to have in the budget in 2021? I think that's what Mike's saying, and tender for both this year and next year.
Correct.
Is that what you're asking?
We can do that. We could do that, or we could do it on a 2020 basis, and then in the fall of 2021, now that you have your final information and we can do a capital forecast for sidewalks and have them set for the next 3 to 4 years based on what you want to do. The only problem with tendering this year for both is if things change again. Once it's finalized, if you commit to a tender, then you have to go with it. So if the Center Road one is what you want to do, if you commit to it now, then you wouldn't be able to change that tender next year. So.
Councillor Brody.
So I guess just relaying my worry is if we wait till the budget's done on whatever year it is, and it's into May, you run the risk of not getting that project done in that year. And I've been seeing this too often, hence the ballpark, where, you know, it's still not approved, still not going to get done. Another year goes on. We need to be ahead of the game, not behind the game.
Yes, and that's why we've discussed starting our budget earlier, and we need to do that.
Correct. And now we have our design analysis. We know what sections are and what the proposed costs are. So council can make those decisions and set the capital budget for the next year.
Councillor Clark.
Yeah, so I guess for the purposes of tonight, would we not just say we're going to approve presented what's in the budget? But is it possible that perhaps at the next council meeting, we could pass a motion of some kind to start the RFP on the 3 sections there on the Napperton and the Pike, and move ahead with that, knowing that that is our intention, so that, to Mike's point, we don't get at the end of the line and miss the chance to possibly get it done this year.
Correct.
That would be my recommendation.
Can we do that, Kathy?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, can we make that motion tonight to approve those 3 sections in the 2020 budget and direct staff to create that tender RFP or whatever you want to call it?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, then also move that.
Okay, moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hendricks. Any further discussion? And that is to approve Napperton Northeast, Pike Northeast, Napperton Northwest at the amounts that are in the budget, and to direct staff to prepare and send out the RFP tender.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Question?
you.
Could you just give me the Napperton Northwest cost? I don't have my computer on.
Yep. So Napperton Northwest is 110,000.
110.
Napperton
Okay.
Northeast is 130, and Pike Northeast is 85.
85. Right. Thank you.
If I could add to that motion, I'd like to see it in concrete, not asphalt.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion on this motion? Okay. All those in favor, just raise your hand. Okay. Opposed, and that is carried.
There was a minor adjustment to Department 6425, which is the Kerwood wastewater sewer. It's just increased in the 64258335 account consulting and engineering to reflect that we're having JFM continue with the sampling as required for the balance of the year. And there was an adjustment in the waste collection department 6440 to recognize that we are not taking any money for bag tags in since middle of March, and it looks like it will be extended for quite a while now. So that's just reflecting that we're not going to have the revenue from the bag tags as expected.
Councillor Clark.
So do you need a motion tonight to extend the stay on bag tag fees, given the extension of the next 28 days as per the Premier's recent order?
No, we did that without council approval when we extended it the first time. We can bring the report forward to council on Monday night as part of the financial measures that you're taking to offset against the cost of citizens right now, and give you some feedback on that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Brody?
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that this has to happen, so why waste too much time on that? I mean, we can't collect it, so we can't get it, so don't waste too much time on it.
Mhm.
Okay.
So those were all of the amendments that were circulated in the budget today.
Okay. So Kathy, the rest of the departments didn't have any changes then?
No, none of the other ones had changes. Those were the significant changes that were made. Which, with it as it is, brought it in at it is just under a 0% increase. So the tax rate wouldn't increase, but likely the collection, because of the assessment increase for the fourth year of the 4-year cycle, would cause it to go up slightly, but it wasn't, it was a negligible amount change.
Okay, and then with the recommendation from council of the $100,000 removed for the MAC replacement, that would also decrease it as well.
I would suggest yes at this point. We'll make those amendments and have it circulated for Monday night.
Perfect. Okay, is there any other questions or comments on the budget? Yep, Councillor McKinnon.
Just for clarification for myself and any of the ratepayers watching, the wheelie bins, are we going ahead with those in May, or will that be restricted to July or August? Do we know?
There will be a report coming to council on Monday night. It's been pushed back till June the 1st.
Okay, thank you.
And I have a Blue Water general meeting by Zoom on Thursday this week. So.
Good.
Okay, Councillor Brody, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, just back to kind of what we did with the sidewalks with the building at the park. Like, I probably realize that with COVID, it might be a long chance that that's going to get anywhere this year, but is the engineering done? Is everything prepared so we can go ahead with getting a tender on that building to go ahead and build?
The engineers are working on it because of the COVID restrictions. They weren't allowed to go out and do any surveying as they're not essential. As the restrictions get reduced, they will be out doing the surveying. They have all of the information that we've received from the user groups as well as council's input. So we're just waiting for them to come back with the design of the building and the complete plan, because what they're doing engineering and electrical, they're going to come back with a complete plan for the park, and then we can do it over 2 phases, one in phase 2020, phase 2 in 2021.
Okay, so we're on board, or we're in the right steps then if things open up. Okay.
Yes, as things open up, they will be getting that done. They're going to prepare the design elements first and then prepare the package for everything at the park, including walking a track around the perimeter, storage, front entrance, beautification, those kind of things.
Yeah. Good.
Councillor Clark.
I'm wondering for our council meeting next week if I just got thinking about this because our revenues will be down with respect to building permits on any new stuff. I'm not sure how much or what percentage, but my ask would be is in our council package for next week, if we could have a listing of building inspections that are in progress or any that have closed in the last 60 days. Thank you.
Is there any other questions on the budget at all? Yeah, Deputy Mayor Hendricks.
Yeah, I'm just, and it's not maybe really large amounts, but I'm looking at things like dump, the dump collections and other things that are going on around the township, some of our revenues may be down and some of our expenses may be up because of the way things are going right now. I'm just wondering how fluid our budget needs to be in case everything just goes south.
Kathy?
Well, what we had done is gone through it and looked at all of the projects and what would be realistic in this year. Considering that changes are happening out there and people are going to likely feel some financial impacts based on this. We have significantly reduced the budget on from what was proposed and are keeping in line with a 0% tax rate increase at the minimum. Council may have to do other financial assistance in regards to possibly reducing tax penalty and interest again or further, or reducing the rate that's imposed at. They also may have to consider whether we extend the collection period as well, which is something that has happened. A lot of municipalities are concerned that we're going to come into a cash flow problem. We're quite well off, and that we have the money in reserves, and it is available to the township to use in the interim if we needed to. But once May's tax installment comes in, that's when we're going to have a reality on how we're going to be going forward and what other concessions may have to take place.
Okay.
Just one comment on that, Deputy Mayor Hendricks. If you actually look at our landfill and waste disposal budget, we have it's technically a $95,000 expense every year, or around that amount. We're budgeting for $95,000. So since the landfill is actually not open right now, that actually should be reduced because the landfill fees that we receive are very minimal. So that could be one of our departments that actually will be saving money on. I'm not sure if you would agree with me, Kathy.
Yes, I do agree, because we haven't had to have the contractor in there to do the covering like we have had in the past. So every time it's open, we do have a mandate to have it covered within a few days after the opening. So that does get costly every month for 2 landfills. So we'll be down to 1 landfill on a more regular basis, but hopefully the cost, we will see some savings in that area.
Councillor Clark and then Councillor Brody.
Yeah, so 2 things. So with what you just said, Kathy, then should there be an offset, because people now are probably, I'm assuming somebody put out 15 bags of garbage because Deputy Mayor Hendricks had posted something on Facebook reminding people that there was a bag limit. So are we incurring costs at the other end through Blue Water if they're picking up more garbage? Are we seeing a significant increase in cost there, or you haven't been billed yet, so you don't know? That's number 1. And number 2, and my second question I completely forgot to ask was, I noticed in the budget for the School Road landfill, there's $6,000 or something for a survey. So what would that survey be for?
The survey is to establish the perimeter of the landfill to make sure we know exactly where it is, and to make sure that we are staying well within the setbacks that we are required to be set back from, as well as to ensure that we have our wells all located properly. We do have one that we need to monitor that goes off the property, so we want to make sure we're monitoring properly at the right location. In regards to the landfill, the pickup charge is not changing. It will be the tipping fees that we pay to Blue Water Recycling for them to dump the garbage at waste management site, which we will see a little bit of an increase. And the last bill came in and it was slightly up, but we will see in the next one what the actual change may be. But
Yeah,
we did have situations. Oh, sorry. We did have situations where people
maybe
putting out
offset.
putting out 10 or more bags of garbage. So we have sent out reminders that the limit is 7, and that's been in place since the contract was signed years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess my point was just if we're reducing the amount that the landfill expense is going to be, there might have to be some lift somewhere else for the tipping fee. That's all I was trying to get at.
Yeah, and I also think Councillor Clark will see that what is being the total amount that's actually being picked up will probably be more so what it will look like once the wheelie bins are in place, because those individuals that haven't been paying for bag tags, meaning disposing of their garbage a different way, is now using the weekly pickup. So I think we're probably seeing a new normal of how much is being picked up on a weekly or bi-weekly basis.
Exactly.
Okay, Councillor Brody, you had a question?
Yeah, so a question on School Road being closed. I do believe other municipalities' waste sites are open. Is waste not an essential service? I'm just wondering, I get why we probably close, but how long are we going to be closed? Because I do think that is listed as an essential service. Is it not? Maybe I'm mistaken.
It is a service, but we do provide the curbside pickup for regular household garbage, which is the priority to be picked up is your regular garbage to have it go. What we're going to do is monitor the landfill and see how things change and what protocols we can put in place that would assist us in being open and being safe to the public. Right now, it's mainly cash that comes across. As you know, cash isn't supposed to be, you're not supposed to touch it. So we would have to look at what PPE would be required and how many staff would have to be on site to successfully open it and make sure the contact is limited as it goes through the process.
Okay, Councillor Clark?
Yeah, just on that note, I'm also a ratepayer in the town of Strathroy. So a family member was there on Saturday with a large trailer full of stuff. So I wasn't in a municipality where I don't pay taxes. I just want to say that up front. And they basically have a portable tap machine. So that, and the guy had a glove on and kept his distance. So we would be possible, like in the township office right now, is that a remote debit machine, or is it, does it need electricity?
It needs electricity. So that is one
And
of the
a high-
options we're looking at is the remote tap, the debit, the square, all of those options.
Okay, yeah, and a phone line, obviously, or whatever, yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right, yeah, because I know like there's the physical distancing too, and there was the issue that the current employee at the landfill, you know, basically up until COVID is highly interacting, collecting cash and checking loads out and all of that. So I get it. Thanks.
And I think the discussion of a portable debit machine or whatever would be, I think that's a discussion we should be having no matter if it's COVID-19 or whenever. A lot of people aren't carrying cash or checks. I know that I don't have checks myself. So we need to go in that direction no matter what with a debit machine or whatever it would be. Councillor Brody?
So is that something, since right now we're pretty close to a 0% increase, should we be putting more money in the fund for the dump right now? Because we're going to need an entrance, not a building, but well, kind of a building. Nothing crazy, even a very nice
garden shed.
glorified garden shed that's insulated. We got to have some sort of porta-johns there. Should we be putting some money into this budget right now to look at something like that? That pretty well needs to be done there. Like if we don't put any money in right now, can that be improved? Is that another year out? I think that's something we should be looking at right now.
I believe there is something.
If I may, it's already included in the 2020 budget as proposed to have the porta potty put out there as well as a small building.
Okay, how much is in there? Do you know that number?
12.5.
I believe
Yeah,
it's
that'd do it.
$12,500.
That'll do it.
12.5. Okay.
Is that correct, Kathy? $12,500, and that was for repairs and maintenance, I believe.
Correct.
Okay, is there any other items you want to discuss in the budget? I think just one other item, and we talked about this at the last meeting, was we were going to have a closed session to talk about the discussion of properties and the discussion of if we want to look at a new location for our works garage, in one location, or what we want to do. So Kathy, I'm thinking we haven't had a closed session in a while since we've been doing this whole virtual Zoom thing. And I don't think it's a great idea to do the public portion and then go right into a closed session. So is there, I just want to see if council's okay with doing a closed session probably the week of April 20th. So maybe the Wednesday, the 22nd. And then we'll have on that agenda the personnel matters that council should be updated on, as well as the budget discussion about properties. Does that sound okay, Kathy? And yeah, and then Jennifer from a procedural bylaw, that's been good for that then?
If that's what council chooses to do, that can be done. I think it's best to do it separate from the public meeting, just for IT purposes. It makes it easier of a transition, then you're not having to worry about kicking public out or any delegations for that matter.
Okay, so do we need a motion then to schedule that closed session meeting?
Yes, please.
Okay, and so what I'm suggesting is, I'll look at my calendar here, April 22nd. And I think everyone's flexible with time. I'm not sure, maybe Councilor Brody, are you wanting to have an evening?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Okay. Does 6 o'clock work for everyone? Or are we wanting 7?
6 o'clock's fine with me. It's whatever. It's good for Mike and the staff.
Should be okay. Or
Okay, so we're looking for a
or
motion.
7 okay? That might not be a really long meeting, would it? I mean,
It might be. We have a lot of things that we have to discuss.
okay. No, 6 o'clock's fine with me.
So a motion to schedule a closed session meeting for April 22nd at 6 p.m. Okay, so Councilor Clark and Councilor McKinnon. And that's for the personnel matters and also property matters. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried.
So that's a question on Monday night, the 20th. Is that at 7 then? Or what time is that one at?
Yes, our regular time, correct, Jennifer?
Yes, it's at 7.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other direction for the budget itself? I'm not seeing any. There's nothing further. Then we need to have just the motion to adjourn. That's at 7:33. Does that sound right?
Yep.
So moved.
Councilor McKinnon and Councilor Brody. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. Okay, thank you so much for joining us, and to everybody at home that's watching live, thank you so much for tuning in to our budget process. And we have our next regular meeting on April 20th. Okay, thank you.